The author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, granted an insightful interview where he talks about the differences between the rich and the poor mindset. Here's everything you need to know. In his best-selling book and in this interview, Robert Kiyosaki emphasized how entirely different the views of the rich and the poor are. Judging from the wide difference in the lifestyles of the 1% that makes up the extremely wealthy and the 99% that makes up the rest, let's see how right this financial guru is. What exactly differentiates the two social classes? According to Kiyosaki, one of the differences is their views regarding the source of wealth. People with a poor mindset erroneously believe that wealth depends on your family. So, if they weren't particularly born into a family of wealth, they conclude that maybe it wasn't meant to be. However, the reality is that poverty or wealth is not necessarily inherited. We all have to work tirelessly to create the financial life that we want. You might come from a family of generational wealth, but lose everything your predecessors have worked so hard for just because you never financially educated yourself. However, a person with a rich mindset would be determined to achieve financial success irrespective of where they come from. Some people with business empires barely had enough to eat as children, but as they began to grow older and learn the ways of the world, they were able to pull themselves out of the hole of poverty. So, to achieve financial success, one thing to do is to acquire the necessary knowledge on how to create, grow, and protect wealth. Robert Kiyosaki also mentioned another great difference between the rich and the poor in this interview. He mentioned that the rich train themselves to always look at the bigger picture, to always believe in the long-term goal. Whether it's regarding an investment or business opportunity, the rich are always thinking of ways to maximize the potential of these opportunities. Waiting several years for returns on an investment sounds like a terrible idea, but not for the rich. Short-term benefits are really cool, but wouldn't you rather wait a few more years until this investment is properly matured? Unlike the poor, the rich continuously search for ways to make the best out of every opportunity. And this mindset is a key factor that seemingly makes the rich richer and the poor poorer. Let's take a look at how focusing on the bigger picture helped two tech moguls. Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, reached out to one of his major competitors in the tech world, Microsoft, for help. At the time, there was no love lost between the two companies, and it was really a bold move for Jobs to reach out to Bill Gates for help. But he had no choice, as his business was going through a difficult phase. However, rather than get rid of his competition by refusing to help Steve Jobs, Gates saw a long-term opportunity. Being a smart businessman with a rich mindset, Bill Gates knew that healthy competition could be good for business, and besides that, he could leverage on the help he rendered to Jobs if he ever needed it. So he invested a whopping $150 million into Apple for non-voting shares. Both parties profited heavily from the deal. Apple not only got the cash, but they also got a guarantee that Office for Mac will be supported for at least 5 years. Interestingly, Microsoft got free of a legal dispute between the two companies. Apple had been accusing Microsoft of infringing on some Apple-owned patents, and all of that somehow disappeared once Microsoft helped. Today, both companies are unarguably two of the most successful in the world, and this might have never been if the 1997 deal never happened. Moving forward, the rich don't work so hard for money. Okay, hold on a minute. How do they make money if they make no effort to work for it? Well, instead of working for money, the rich allow their money to work for them. Most of us want to go to college, get a degree, and a well-paying job that allows us to afford a mortgage, pay back our student loans, and probably afford a car. This seems like a pretty decent life, right? Well, not for individuals with a rich mindset. When you do this, you go through a dreaded cycle where you always have to worry about retirement, credit card loans, taxes, and bills. But everything changes when you decide to invest your money in profitable ventures. As crazy as this might sound, working hard is really not the secret to financial freedom. Working smart is. The rich recognize this truth, so they make an extra effort to invest whenever they can, as this not only provides passive income for them, but also helps them to secure their future. In fact, rich people with a rich mindset might start out as an employee in a company just to learn how the business works before venturing out on their own. The rich take calculated risks, make bold choices, and aren't afraid to try new experiences. Most importantly, according to Robert Kiyosaki, there's another fundamental difference between the rich and the poor, and it concerns their views regarding debts. The poor are so afraid of debts, they would do anything within their means to steer clear of it. But it's a whole different game with the rich, as they try to use debts to their advantage. Robert Kiyosaki's popular mantra, "Savers are losers," stems from the fact that those who save their money and are afraid to get into debt would most times lose out on financial success. He explains that there are several ways to use debt to your advantage, but it is important that you know which works best for you. For starters, you could borrow money to invest in high-profit stocks, take out a mortgage to get started with real estate, or borrow goods for sale from manufacturing companies. Once you do your research and have a solid financial plan, you'll pay off your debt and still be able to make a profit. Sounds good, right? Well, there's more where that came from. Keep watching this video to find out the most important thing the financial expert Robert Kiyosaki had to say about the rich and the poor mindsets. The next thing that sets the rich apart from the poor is the fear of risks and failure. The poor are always afraid to take risks because they're afraid of losing whatever little thing they have. And I can understand this. If you take a risk and it fails to materialize into something good, there's a good chance it could destroy everything else you had going on. But does this mean we shouldn't take risks at all? Definitely not. Robert Kiyosaki once shared an experience where he quit his job. After receiving the huge bonus, which was about $30,000, he was still thinking of how to spend the money wisely, when his colleague walked up to him and said, "You're going to go back." Kiyosaki was shocked by the statement, so he asked him why he said so. And the colleague's response was painfully blunt, "Because you're going to fail." Kiyosaki was not bothered by the statement because he knew the colleague had not made the statement to spite him. That was just what he believed. And this was because this same employee had once left the company and returned because he failed in the business he set up. So Robert faced him and said, "Look, you failed and you came back. I'm going to fail, but I'm never coming back." Such an attitude and mindset is what pushes the rich to financial success. They believe that no matter how much they fail, they have to keep picking up the pieces, as this drives them a step closer to their goal. Mistakes are inevitable if you intend to grow. Toddlers have to fall several times before learning to walk perfectly. So, if you learn from the mistakes, you're smart. But if you try to avoid any risk, it would be hard for you to grow. Another thing about the poor is that they'll always blame something or someone else for their financial struggles and never take responsibility. If you ask the rich why something is going wrong in their business, they'd take the blame for their circumstances and would work towards rectifying the problems. People with a rich mindset are constantly looking for ways to become more financially educated and free. They understand that the world is constantly evolving, and to stay on top in this ecosystem, you have to constantly improve in creative ways. Once upon a time, the fastest way to calculate figures was with the abacus. Today, many of us no longer know what that is because it's now become obsolete. The same goes for many other things in the financial world. So, if you want to attain financial success, you should focus more on financial education. If you want to achieve financial freedom like the rich, then perhaps it's time to begin to think like you are rich already. When confronted with a financial conundrum, ask yourself, what would Robert Kiyosaki do?